Hello and welcome to another episode of BW Marketing World's new interview series in partnership with Kaizen, BW Marcom Power Talks, conversations that drive the next big moves. This is the series where I talk to corporate communication and marketing captains about the latest trends, the changing role of communication leaders, new gen strategy, and a lot more. Now, AI is no longer just a buzzword. It's the big thing right now, making waves across the industries and dominating headlines all over. From personalized experiences to cutting edge productive tools, AI is kind of revolutionizing how companies communicate and engage with their audiences. But with its rapid ascent comes a new set of challenges. In a world where misinformation is spread like wildfire, AI generated content can blur the lines of authenticity, corporate communications now kind of are pushed to navigate these complexities while safeguarding brand reputation. As India's consumers demand more transparency, the question arises, how will AI shape the future of corporate communications? And are companies prepared to handle the risk if it brings alongside this promise? For today's dialogue, I have a very special guest joining me is Ms. Tuhina Pandey, who is CMO of IBM India and Southeast Asia. Welcome, Ms. Pandey.
Thank you so much for having me, Risham.
For this dialogue, we will be discussing the dynamic intersection of AI and corporate communications. We will also explore how artificial intelligence is revolutionizing the role of communications leader, redefining engagement strategies, how are you reimagining crisis management. We will also explore how communications teams can harness AI to navigate these complexities while maintaining transparency, trust, and ethical standards.
That's a lot
Uh,
to unpack. Looking forward.
that's correct, and I'm looking forward to it. Now, you as an advocate for both powerful stories and on the other hand for cutting edge technology, how have you seen the intersection of these two evolve over the past 2 to 3 years? If you can kind of pinpoint some of the game-changing shifts that must have stood out for you.
Absolutely. So I will say that we are living in interesting times, and some things which looks exponential, which looks sudden, actually happens for a long time, right? When we notice it, it becomes this big thing or a big moment. So if you really rewind a little bit, Resham, AI is not new to us, but I think with the development and where it has reached now, with generative AI front and center, and now the conversation around agentic AI, who will be our future colleagues, right? The digital colleagues. I think the inflection point is where the exponential wheel is starting to turn. And that shift, if you look at it from a communicator's point of view, a marketer's point of view, is now getting very real, right? So, for example, the whole job description itself is disrupted. um, People and their scope of work is going to change. The whole workforce is going to get disrupted. The content generation is already there. People are now saying the last bastion is the editorial mind, the satire, the nuance of human context, the irony. How does it read the same thing in different context? And that is a steep mountain to climb. But I would say that AI is marching at a fast forward rate towards that mountain peak. So, yes, it is disrupting as we speak. And if we don't disrupt ourselves and change really fast at this point in time, then I think we will be the onlookers. And that is what has really changed at this point in time.
There's a probability that we become dinosaurs if we don't match the pace.
Oh, yes.
Within, I mean, we're talking about the fast pace of changing with AI. Now, as I said initially, it comes with its own set of challenges with the rapid spread of AI-generated misinformation, deepfakes. Now, there's an abundance of misinformation too. What role does corporate communications play in safeguarding brand trust? How can AI tools help detect, counteract fake news, and kind of what are some of the strategies can be implemented to ensure that the messaging from the brands and is kind of 100% authentic? What is your say on this?
Yeah. Absolutely. So, look, as a communicator or as corporate communications, you are the custodian as a brand. There is no mincing the words, whether it is pre generative AI, post generative AI, post agentic AI. That role, the fact that you're the custodian of the brand, that you are in charge of the reputation, that people look up to you to defend that credibility, build that reputation, that doesn't change. The playing field has changed dramatically. Right. So one of the things at IBM that we consistently talk about last year, in fact, it's one of our flagship campaigns, is responsible AI, which means that if you have to use and leverage and make most out of this amazing technology, AI and generative AI, then you have to do it in a way that actually gives you the long term returns. It's not very different from how we build reputation. Reputation is everyday investment that gives you long term returns, that shields you against any crisis, that helps you build and gain the trust of your stakeholders. AI is the same. You have to invest in it every day. You have to look at the data integrity. You have to look that the AI models are not biased. You have to ensure that your data is well represented in it. You have complete transparency and explainability. It's not a black box. And therefore, the onus is on corporate communicators in a very big way to ensure that they use leverage AI in a responsible way, because then that becomes a friend. For example, in a 24/7 Resham world, you got to be automated. You know, in our world, sun doesn't set. The internet is on, our consumers are switched on in different geographies, different time locations, the speed of consumption, the amount of digital data deluge or social interactions that's going on, it's not humanly possible to deal with everything. But when you get to a crisis mode, can you use automation? Can you use AI for detection, for safeguarding, for responding in real time? All of that can be used, but you have to spend time, put in the hard yards in building the foundation models really well. So the only bit is get your foundation right, then you can just fly. But that's critical to do it responsibly.
I mean, thanks for giving us the broad contours of how to do it and what are some of the must-dos in order to work with AI. Now, you brought in a very good point of transparency in a
Hmm.
digital world where transparency is key. Now, there can be many ways that AI can be leveraged. But I want to come to you precisely at IBM. What's happening? What are some of the tools or processes do you use to ensure that AI generated content remains in line with the company's core values? Uh, doesn't disturb the ethics?
So we have a AI lifecycle solution, so to say, when you talk about IBM, and you must have heard of Watson X. So there is Watson X AI, there's Watson X data, and there's Watson X governance. And of course, there is this whole portfolio. There's Watson X orchestrate, where agentic AI you can leverage it to have your agentic AI deployments and execution in place. But what I'm saying is this governance piece at IBM, we are absolutely, that is, we call is our rooted anchor point when we deliver AI. And that is our differentiator in the market as well. So it's very important that what AI feeds is what AI feeds you, right? So their data comes into the picture, the biases in the data. I mean, transparency. What are the models, the variables, the data? Can you really see it, the source of the data? What is that data? All of that needs to be factored in, right? Then, of course, your governance layers, your compliance that you are sort of operating, you don't want to end in the code of law, right? And at IBM, we look at the full life cycle. And with the governance first approach, therefore, what we do is we invest in the foundation models. And that's why I said we are not speed dating AI, right? We are really building a long term relationship. And therefore the importance of building that foundation model. You can get fantastic answers from secondary data, you don't know where that data is coming from, but if you invest time in representing your own data in the AI models and you build that foundation, then it's easy. That is what at IBM is a non-negotiable. And if you really look at the market space, and not blowing my own trumpet or IBM's trumpet, but there are very few companies who actually offer, well, at least from my vantage point, there isn't another company which can offer the full stack of AI lifecycle with the level of governance that IBM does. And back to my campaign, Responsible AI, therefore we swear by it and all the tenets that I talked about, Responsible AI as well.
Very interesting, and I kind of appreciate the attention on governance that you do, because with the, I mean, we are in the world of open source platforms.
Mm-hmm.
For a brand, there can be many stakeholders. It can be investors, it can be leadership, it can be employees, it can be customers who can go out and write anything and everything about the brand that can make or
Yes.
break the image. And it's very threatening. With this, I want to bring in your attention on online reputation management. In the recent times, we have seen many cases of reputation management. And in your sense, from your viewpoint, tell me how AI can help communications leaders. And before that, your broad sense on how leaders are looking at reputation management.
It's a tough one, I will be honest with you, Resham, because if you really look at the last 3 years, I'm talking about a time window where the gig economy, let's say, or the where post on X is toppling governments and toppling companies, and it's very powerful. And the democratization of journalism or media, or who has the voice, podcasters and influencers, it has opened the playing field so much that the clutter or the diversity of voices that a brand has to deal with or respond to is, it's almost schizophrenic in some sense, right? So your centralized response systems, which was traditionally the way, does not work anymore. You have to be decentralized, you have to be real time, you have to be authentic, you have to be transparent, but you have to do all of that with speed. And that's why that is definitely not humanly possible. And that's where the problem also becomes the solution. It's not, AI is not a problem or a solution, it's a leverage. How you use it is what makes a difference. So, can you automate? Can you detect? Can you predict? Can you preempt? Can you respond? Can you search? Can you summarize? Can you organize data systems quickly? Can you access information in real time? All of that is possible in the world of AI and automation, right? And in generative AI, you can also respond quickly to different audiences in real time, personalized messaging. All of that is possible. And we are getting to a world where AI will make AI, agentic AI, what we are talking about. These are your autonomous systems or autonomous AI in play. And of course, all that requires responsibility, governance. But once you invest in the foundation layer, then you can leverage it to your advantage. But I will also say, Resham, I think we got to be agile, and this is changing too fast. And the only way we will make a difference and we will be able to continue to be the custodians of our brand is by remaining agile and willing to learn and unlearn. So the more humble we are as professionals to learn, I think the more survival shelf life we have as professionals. Otherwise, we don't want to compete against AI. We want to add or augment AI. And that's where the playing field is. I think our
Now,
roles are going to be very, very different now on.
now this is one thing which makes me really happy, that needle stops at human and their capabilities. Now,
Yes.
Ms. Pandey, with AI, we know that we have to be agile, more responsible, I mean, more aware with what we can do, what with what we should not do. It's kind of transforming industries completely. And with that, as you rightly pointed out, it's all also kind of transforming the roles. And for that matter, communications leader role is of a very importance. Now, with this, marketing and communication teams often face the challenge of explaining complex technologies to diverse audiences. This can be a challenge within a company, maybe to a larger extent to external shareholders, maybe partners, maybe customers. It can be a complex task uh, in some sense. How does your team approach marketing IBM's AI innovations to kind of ensure that we resonate with both technical experts and broader non-technical audiences?
Yeah, I think it is as complex as you make it. And sometimes I feel like if you can't say it simply, you don't know it, right? The biggest challenge is to understand complex problems, simplify it in a way that makes sense to your audience. And you will appreciate this, Resham. We are in service of our audience. So if we start from that lens, where is my audience? What is their understanding? What matters to them? What is their need? What do they want to hear about? And then you tell a story, meet them where they are and in their context and in their construct, and talk about the impact that technology makes in their life, because every tech story has a big heart. It's ultimately about human beings, right? And that impact story, what's in it for me? How did it impact another's life? How, if you can, and that is a challenge. How do you bring a heart, beating heart in an otherwise complex text story? And that's where communicators come in. That's where marketers come in. Our job is to bridge that gap between, a complex sort of a technology construct into how does it impact human lives, and make it into a story that makes a difference to the person listening to it. And it's so compelling that they want to talk about it and tell that story to others as well, right? So I don't see a conflict. I think both go together. And one of the things in my entire career, whether being a journalist on or being on the corporate side, I have always thrived with technology, and why I've loved covering or being in the tech world is because the impact it creates in a human life. I think that's the story to tell. So at IBM, we're trying to do exactly that. First of all, be in the service of the audience, care about the audience first, and take the stories that make a difference to their life, solves a problem for them, something that they can relate to, something that can share, something that builds a relationship based on that storytelling and interaction between IBM and them as well.
Given, I mean, from this, what I could understand is both can go together. There's no conflict because of this technical construct altogether. Now, given the dynamic has evolved a lot, and we are racing like anything, what are some of the things that we can now expect from IBM? We know that they're doing a lot with advanced technology on your communications side, but what more can we expect in 2025?
Well, I think the big thing, there are two big blocks that IBM is dressing in the market right now, which is AI and hybrid cloud, right? Your hybrid cloud is obviously the foundation where the enterprise, and I'm talking about business AI, I'm not talking about consumer AI. There is one, of course, I can write a romantic poem on any of the platforms and send it to you, but you won't hold me accountable for and not sue me for plagiarism in the code of law, right? But in a business form, I can't do that. In a business environment, it is a very different kind of AI for business, right? And that's where our offerings are top notch. And I talked about the whole AI lifecycle offering that we have. And you will hear, and you are already hearing a lot about the agentic AI. And we have fantastic offerings in the market on the agentic AI as well. And I talked about what's in this orchestrate. So watch the space. Not far from here. We are actually launching the Responsible AI Next 2.0 campaign as well in a few days, and you will see that it is a lot to do with agentic AI. So there's a bunch that is to come, and I will add that IBM is extremely committed to the quantum world as well. And if you've seen with the government of India, we have a lot of engagements on ground on quantum as well. So we are absolutely committed to the revolution that is happening in the AI world, but keeping an eye out in the future and the quantum world. And I talk about this big convergence when hybrid cloud, AI, and quantum meet. I can't tell you what that world looks like. It'll be
I'm also
exponential.
wondering what it would be, but looking forward to it. Now, we just the final bit of our
As long as
conversation.
we solve problems and as long as we just don't get technology is for a cause, it's not for the sake of itself.
Looping it back to your point, addressing and working for the consumers, addressing them, listening to them, and serving them. Now, just the final bit of our conversation.
Yes.
Ms. Pandey, we in our conversation also highlighted and kind of pinpoint that this is also changing roles in a big way.
Mm-hmm.
And you, as someone who leads both corporate communications and marketing, what advice would you give to young professionals hoping to break into communications or marketing? If you can emphasize on what skills should they focus on developing to kind of thrive in this rapidly evolving landscape?
Yes. So, the answer would be multiple skills I can list out that you got to have if you're a great communicator or a marketer. But I will
Give
say
us
this.
the
So,
must do three
yes,
ones.
yes.
Give us
No,
the
I
top
will
three.
say, I think the top one is solve a problem. It's not about the skills that you have today may not be relevant tomorrow. And you can learn and unlearn. I think that mindset, the beginner's mindset, is very important. We live in a zero experience age today, Resham. Anyone walks in and says, I have 20 years of experience on generative AI or agentic AI, that doesn't work. Life and world is changing too fast. We are in a zero experience age. And therefore, it's also a playing field. It also the space for younger lot entering the foray, as long as they are competitive on technology, willing to learn and unlearn, and solving a problem, they have a equal value to, let's say, someone who's been in the business for a long time. And therefore the message for those who are in the business for a long time is the same, that you got to have the beginner's mindset, right? So I would go back to saying understand business or understand a problem, understand what's happening around you, macro, micro, try and solve a problem and use the skills which are core to a communication and a marketers of breaking it down a complex things and making it relatable and delivering that story of solving a certain problem to audiences that matter in quick time is what's going to keep you in the game. So that will be my advice, really. Solve a problem.
Ms. Pandey, from this conversation, I could understand from a broader lens that technology is will continue to change businesses and roles in a big way. We need to be matching the pace for the greater good. Thank you so much for making time for this,
And I
Ms.
will
Pandey.
add, Resham, I will add, it's interesting, right? That now we worry about how is your interpersonal skills, right? But we will worry about intra AI, inter AI skills as well. Right? So we are getting into that world um, fairly quickly.
Very quickly, very quickly. I'm looking forward to it. I sometimes really wonder what magic can AI do in some next 2 to 3 years. I mean, this can be a shorter period in my head also. Thank you so much, Miss Pandey, for making time for this. And I'm looking forward to more such dialogues in future.
Thank you for having
Thank
me,
you.
Risham. Lovely talking
Thank
to
you,
you.
Akansha. Thank you.